So gonna just do introduction to React. So gonna move into the prerequisites. Yeah, laptop with internet connection. If you wanna continue, just I guess there's kind of two ways. If you wanna just like understand what I'm saying, or like you just wanna code along, it really depends to people. Usually, sometimes I just like to just watch along. I think it's really good to being able to completely understand rather than just blindly copying the code. Visual Studio Code, GitHub account later if you wanna join me in like the Git commits, because later on I'm not just using Convex locally. I will integrate it with GitHub using the GitHub Actions, basically the CI/CD pipeline. If you don't know, it's like basically just integration, automatically deploy to the cloud, the front end and the back end, all under 2 hours. So it will be fun to see how it works. And yeah, so I will just try to assume that most people here have like a basic HTML, JavaScript knowledge, a bit of very little JavaScript because of this backend Convex usage, but a lot of more about the HTML side. And then yeah, don't hesitate to ask any questions if you have anything to share. Just raise your hand. I can stop me anytime if you think I speak too fast. I know there was like the feedback yesterday. I know I speak too fast. I like to speak fast, but yeah, just feel free if you think I'm speaking too fast. And yeah, so today's agenda. So the slide will be like very short. I think last year is like around 15 minutes. I will just be around it. Just the React, what is React, the core concepts, and then like we will just turn this whole project into React based app. And yeah, so what is React, right? So why do we even need to learn this if HTML, CSS, JavaScript is already used, is good enough, right? So it's basically a library. Not a framework per se. Yeah, it's basically just a library. So if you see like React, Angular, Vue, they are like a framework, but React is actually a library. If you use something like Next.js, like that's on top of React, that's a framework. But it's basically, you can think of it's like, I guess, kind of like interchangeable. It's just basically something that's on top of JavaScript, basically to build like single page applications, or like it can be used for multi-page applications also. So it's focused on the Vue layer part. React makes things like very usable, makes things really easy. And then it's very responsible for rendering UI element and updating them in response to user interactions or data changes. So yeah, React has been like kind of changed the whole industry. It's like they built like around 2014. Before we just use like HTML5, we use Flash. And then it's just very painful if you wanna build things with scaling, with things to scale in mind. And then even like I think 4 years ago, I think there was quite a bit of competition. There's like a lot of JavaScript frameworks like React, Angular, Vue. But nowadays, so I have been like in my co-op. I was like I was in co-op for like the first 8 months, and then another 8 months in the two company, kind of like medium big size tech company. And then a lot of people, everyone just use React because it's kind of the standard in the industry. And then yeah, it's just really fun. And then coding React is like coding in a functional programming language. If you learn something like programming language like Haskell or like other stuff, probably not covered, but it's just really fun because it's not like it just feels like a real programming. It doesn't feel like you're just coding HTML, CSS. You will learn more about it later. So React doesn't manage routing or like handling data fetching. It's basically just a library, right? It doesn't do anything other like very expensive rather than you need to use another library if you want to do that. It's very flexible. You can just use anything. And then you can use, you can use additional tools or libraries depending on your needs. And then we have the core concepts of React here. So for the components, virtual DOM, and JSX. So for components, basically React component is just like a custom HTML element. You can plug things out, you can pass the props, it's like basically a smart HTML component because you can pass things and then it can like render things very smartly. So that's why there's a concept of virtual DOM. And then like JSX is basically a React file extension, like where JavaScript is like .js, like HTML.html. React usually is .jsx. It like has like some kind of like already React built-in feature, but you can still use .js and import React. So it's kind of like interchangeable of the way you want to use it. But I just like using .jsx just to make it a bit more explicit if you want to use React. Yeah, so for component, so the architecture of React is kind of component based. So like UI is composed of small reusable piece of code. And this is kind of like the big thing of software industry. if you learn something about called like Docker, for example, it's container. You wanna make things into a component and isolate it. You don't need to care about anything. It's like kind of abstraction, right? If you learn about, like, I guess, a lot of computer science knowledge rely on like a lot of big computer science ideas, and React just use something like that. So for example, in HTML, if you want to use a button, you might use like a button and then hold the styling and all those stuff. But React, you just like kind of like export default function of the button itself, and then you just care that this is a button. You don't care about like all this huge chunk of code if you want to import something. But it's not just that. Each component can also manage its own logic. So it's not just it looks pretty, it actually have a more efficient speed compared to HTML. So it's like really busy to build and maintain large applications by reusing these building blocks. So I said earlier that I think React is like make things reusable, make things pretty, but I guess the good part is this virtual DOM, I guess the theory that we are using. So it's basically, if I said yesterday that HTML is basically a tree, right? And then what makes things slow before React is that if you want to change one thing, you change it from the root. Like everything changes, like a stack of domino, right? But in React, if a state of component change, only these things needs to change and everything the children under it. So it just makes things really fast compared to like if you use a HTML-based counterpart. So React updates has a virtual DOM, and then it's just transferred a real JavaScript, like the real HTML DOM. DOM, so DOM stands for document object model. It's basically the HTML tree. So like document is like everything starts from the root, the HTML root has body, and then for example, the body has a main, it consists of header and of the sections. Yeah. So yeah, as I said before, React has a virtual DOM, and then it reconciles with the real DOM. That way they can make things like just really fast. Only change the necessary parts of the actual DOM. So yeah, the performance cost of frequent updates and allow for smoother interactions. And yeah, this is all I was gonna share. And I'm gonna just give you a bit of walkthrough of how it actually works, because I think what I've been saying so far is just like all the lecture. So what does the code look like, right? Before I move into the code. So this React.dev is a very helpful. I think trying to learn stuff from docs, documentation is really useful. And this is just the quick start. So I think if I just zoom it, yeah. So it's just give you introduction of 80% of React concepts. So React.dev, it's for those who just join. So basically everything that I post in my workshop, I've posted in the Discord. If not, you can go to my website, brianrahadi.com. It's in the Langara Hacks Discord. Let me know if anyone still want to access it. But yeah, so basically the design here, we have the design, day 2 React Dev documentation, the GitHub code, and then the convex, basically the database that we're going to use later. Yeah, so this is the first part. So this is a component. Nothing special, it's just a button. So you make a function basically, like this is just a function that returns like a HTML component button here with the content of I'm a button. So we have also, so now that we have this function, we can just completely use it like this. Export default function my app, and then return it. So function here is just a function, right? So if they have the keyword export default here, so it's usually used for like if you want to import things from other files. So you want to have the keyword export, and then if you have the keyword default, it means this file is only importing this one app. So you can just automatically infer it that if you are importing from this file, it must be this component. That's why you have the default. Whereas if you just export function, you need to, okay, you're importing from this file, but what component are you importing, right? So yeah, we will go through this again later in the demo. And yeah, so this is the demo function my button, the export default function my app, and yeah, it'll just be a quick HTML show. And then yeah, there's also writing markup, JSX, JavaScript, JSX is stricter in HTML. So basically in HTML, if you join my workshop yesterday, I mentioned that HTML tags can be like opening and closing. And then, but if a element is like self-closing, meaning like, for example, like div here, right? The div in here, it's like opening and closing. But the BR here, it's like self-closing. It doesn't have like the opening and closing. So it's stricter in a way that you need to always have that slash sign. In HTML, they don't care. They just like if it's like self-closing, even if you don't add the slash tag, it will just not complain at all. Just like I guess a few minor things if you have a bug of that. And yeah, adding styles. So if mentioned yesterday that in HTML you have a class, but React, that is like a combination of HTML and JavaScript. Class is a reserved keyword in JavaScript. So you need to change the class name, right? So who loses now? So HTML need to lose. Their class keyword now is the HTML class keyword now is just class name. Except for so the original class keyword just stands for like, I think if you learn object-oriented programming, it's just like that kind of class, the kind of like more programming logic, not the styling one. So so you can write CSS rules. It's the same. Dot avatar. Dot stands for anything selecting with the class name of avatar. And you can display the data here. User.name. So this is like if you want to reference a JavaScript variable in React component, it's like combining HTML and JavaScript. So like this part HTML, but now that you use a curly bracket here, you can reference it easily. App.js, style, SRC, conditional rendering. So you can like render things conditionally, like what I mentioned before. So it's like you use the programming language if is locked in. So is locked in basically as a Boolean, true or false. And the content can be anything and you can return it. And then there's like I guess what you say, sweet syntax, like just a better kind of syntax. It's basically the same, but just like more compact if you prefer it. Synthetic sugar. Yeah, it's a synthetic sugar just to make things like looks a bit cooler, but doesn't really have like any kind of difference. And this is also the same. So only if it's true that this will return this React component. If not, it will just not return anything. Can also render a list. You can have like maps. So I like using map a lot. So map is basically like a more advanced for loop. If you have learned for loop, just like I guess map things out. If you put an apple, you just map things out into apple juice. So each apple goes to like a blender, like a function of some sort. So I will provide in a demo. We will use a map function later on, and we also have like responding to events, on click, handle click here, and then updating the screen. So React, one of the most useful features is they have the React hooks. So React hooks basically just what makes things faster, I guess. The way you want to update logic, right, data. So we have useState. This is basically like count and set count. So count is basically just variable. Set count is like the function later on. So if you want to change the count is a constant. You can see here constant. So count is a variable. So if you want to change it, you can only go to the set count function. So why we go through all this? Basically because what I said before, the React virtual DOM thing. If you use useState, if it's changed, it will only change for anything that's affected by this count stuff. That's why it needs to be kind of like strict with the way we operate with React here. We need to use this kind of React API so that we know when to render or not render stuff. And so this is usehooks. When I said before, we have the useState and other stuff. And my app here. Okay, you can see it. So this is what I explained before. Handle click, you set count to count plus one, and then everything in here, like if you have the count here, if you click anything, a function that use handle click here, they will just update the count into plus one. Like this. So if you button here, so we need to show the count and the on click, handle click here. So this on click is the HTML attribute, and then the handle click is a function. So when everything is clicked, we just set the count into count plus one. And I think this is all for the quick introduction. Just gonna go ahead and use GitHub. So in a way we want to progress here. If you see my GitHub code here, let's see. So I already made this just yesterday. And then it's basically the same as last one, like as yesterday. So most things we will be kind of refactoring things, but what we want to show is mostly this guestbook feature. So yeah, we can see here a good UI. So all of this stuff, most of this stuff, we are just gonna like port things over. We don't really care about the kind of like the styling anymore. I just focus that on yesterday. Today, just focusing on the React concepts, how we kind of fetch stuff, the end-to-end stuff, how it works. So just making this guestbook feature. So this is like the guestbook. So like I guess like a review of this person, for example. So you can make like Brian, or is John Doe again, maybe Jane Doe. Message hello world. If we click submit here, so automatically empty, and then you can see the Jane Doe here. And then yeah, as I said, we use a backend now, so it's not local. So if you go to this page, I think I share it in my post. If you click this, basically like if you open it from anywhere, like if I do hard refresh here, the data is still there because we have an actual backend. Oh yeah, I see someone adding stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's like, yeah, I don't put my credit card, so maybe if you spam it, should be fine. Yeah, okay. So just gonna go ahead and yeah, so this is the final state. So because we need to use the fit command, I don't have like a starter repo because we are just gonna rely on that. So if you want to follow me, or you can just later on watch the video, I think that's also completely fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make a new folder here. So just open a new folder, Langara Hacks. I'm just gonna make open a terminal here, or if you don't know sure how to use a terminal, I can also open it from Visual Studio Code. So usually just drag and drop this folder. It's pretty much anything that opens a terminal. Visual Studio Code. So with Visual Studio Code, you can just, let's see, big enough. Oh, okay. So yeah, just right click, open an integrated terminal. So it is one way if you want to open the terminal. And yeah, so we can make the project here. So yeah, I don't remember the command. So we can just follow, we can just explore things together on how we actually make things here. So we're gonna use a build tool called Fit, Fit React. Okay, let's see, Wi-Fi. Oh, it's localhost. Fit React here. Okay. So Fit is basically just a build tool for React. I think there's a previously React is like using a create React app, but there's like some performance problem, and Fit is just faster. So yeah, just think it of as a like the way we wanna build React. Yeah. So getting started here, right? So getting started, we just wanna follow this one, the React file, JavaScript React here. Oh wait, not this one. Oh yeah, so just scaffolding your first Fit project. So I'm just gonna use this command, npm create fit latest. Just gonna paste it here. So even if you don't follow if you don't open the website, you can just copy through this. Just basically type npm create fit latest. Yeah, so you need to have the node package manager uploaded to be able to do this. So project name. So I'm just gonna use langhacks24 React Live. Yeah, just click enter here, and then you wanna use the framework. So yeah, Fit can be any framework like Vue, Angular. Oh, there's no Angular. Okay. Yeah, can use React here. Just enter it. So we can use TypeScript. So TypeScript is basically like more advanced React. Usually in the company, when my company, I use TypeScript. It's really recommended to use TypeScript if you have learned React and then you have learned something programming language like Java or C++. I think TypeScript is a nice breed because I think pretty much like if you want to work on something serious, just use TypeScript. But even if you want to do hackathon, I still use JavaScript because you want to move things fast. You don't care about like this type safety or other stuff. If you want to do hackathon, just use JavaScript because you want to impress people. You don't care about like if it's messy or other stuff. You use JavaScript here. So it's done. And then yeah, I'm just gonna now run this. So cd langhacks, and then I just gonna click tab here. So just oh, I have 3 folders, so I'm just gonna, yeah, cd langhacks 24, just open the folder here. Cd stands for change directory, so just go to this folder instantly. And I can just do npm install, or it's the same, npm I. So in PMI, what does it do is, it installs like all the required all the required packages. So it can take some time for some people, because like we use like some packages to install, and yeah, and then we can just do npm run dev, and yeah, we can open it. So yeah, we have opened like our kind of like first React website here, Fit plus React, and then yeah, it has like some boilerplate code. So if I push, yeah, count, can just increase it. Yeah, and so everything we are gonna develop is just in this folder. So I don't care about these 2 folders. So I'm just gonna ahead and drag and drop this to the Visual Studio Code, and just remove this one, because we just wanna care about the file that we are gonna develop. Yeah, so let's see. Oh yeah, it's we deleted the older one, so just open again, npm run dev. Yeah, reload. Okay, so as I said before, I think we are gonna make the new website. So I'm just gonna go ahead and open my website again, the post here, and open the Figma design. We are gonna use this to make the guestbook, and then also open the GitHub code of the last one. So it's gonna use the GitHub code of the intro to web dev. I'm gonna use the one for portfolio, and it has the more finished code compared to the one in portfolio live, I think. Unless yeah, just gonna use this portfolio, and then just copy paste all of this stuff first. So no worries. We'll still have like one more component that we will make, and I just want to make sure that you guys know the React idea, not the styling idea. So just gonna go ahead and copy paste this body folder. Wait, I think not the body. Just let me see. Body here. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and paste the body folder here. And yeah, and the app.jsx, I will just completely, I think we have the main, right? So main is basically the starting point. It's like the root, right? The strict mode. So we have strict mode. Basically, sometimes we fetches the data twice if we strict mode in the development only, so that just to catch bugs sometimes. So that's why we have this strict mode here, in case someone is curious. And we have the app.jsx. And yeah, just gonna go ahead and remove this thing. And just gonna use this. This is called a React fragment. Basically, what does it do is that it's not an actual HTML element, but because I think in React you wanna have like one parent, right? So all of this, so when it's rendered, it's like an empty, like a dummy fragment. But later on, when we would use the component, it will just be kind of destructured. You don't use this basically. Just think of it like a div, but it doesn't take space. Yeah. So I'm just gonna copy paste this. I will actually remove the body now because we have the body here. We'll remove this body here. And then, so if you use Visual Studio Code, you can use Shift Option F to sort, to kind of like, so I click undo. So if you Shift Option F, or I think in Windows it's like Alt Option F, if I'm not mistaken, or Shift Alt F, just like re-indent the whole project. And I'm gonna remove the script file. We are not gonna use this JavaScript now. And yeah, I think there's like something I need to care about. Oh yeah, so it will error a lot because so one thing that I'm gonna change is I'm gonna use Command F here. It's gonna use Command F here. So mention that I think in HTML we use a class, but React, the HTML class is into class name. So I'm just gonna do a global change and replace class here into class name. And then to make sure that I don't do it, yeah, and then I can just click replace. Oh, I think here. Yeah, and just click once. Just click once to make sure that it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't do, because if I click more, I think I will just do class name, class name, class name. Yeah, okay. So class name. So I just click this part, this button, replace R. Yeah. So I think if I see it now, it should still be error. Yeah. So there should still be error because there's also one I kind of like accidentally purposefully make these things to be buggy if it's convert to React. But I think it's a good learning opportunity. So what I mentioned before, so in HTML, element is okay if it's not self-closing, but React will complain. So that's why like image here, right? It doesn't, it's a self-closing tag. It's a self-closing HTML element. So it must have the slash, but it doesn't have one here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use a slash here and then do the same for all the images here. Slash here, slash, slash, and slash, and slash. Yeah. And then it will, okay, nice. Now it's, at least it's shown. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is I will remove all this CSS file because we don't want it. We don't want it. Just delete it, the app.css, delete the index.css. Should just be a very blank HTML element. Yeah. So we have also not imported any of the images. That's why it doesn't show anything. That's fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go to this portfolio end. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this default.css. So for those who don't join yesterday, I think I have to copy the raw file here. So for those who doesn't want to join yesterday, default CSS here is basically just kind of like the starting point of the CSS, so that it resets everything of the website, right? So just a quick refresher is if you use a HTML CSS by default, some things are like still pre-configured, right? You don't, like, for example, that still have some padding or margin. You want to have like to truly reset it. So that's why I use this modern CSS reset. I find this quite helpful. So just copy this. I will change the name of index.css to a default.css. Default.css here. And then just command P or like paste. And then app.css is also the same. I'm just copy it from this whole thing. Copy raw file. Don't worry, there will be some more CSS to add later on if you want to learn more CSS. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, now it's kind of implemented. It's kind of nice, right? So basically we just refactor the entire React into the entire JavaScript into HTML, CSS, JavaScript into React for now. So I'm gonna go ahead and then import the images, I believe. Yeah, so if I want to import the images, one easy way I can do is just think if I can download this directory. I don't think so. So an easy way, if you want to do it, you can just like download this repo, download the zip. Maybe some of you already downloaded this from yesterday. So I'm just gonna go ahead and then intro to web dev here. We have the assets here, right? Just gonna drag and drop this to here. Here. So under the SRC. And then I just click move, replace. Oh, cannot do that. I will just delete it then. Move to trash and just copy here, move it to here. Command C, Command V. Yeah. So I have the assets here. Yeah. It should still not show anything. Yeah, it will complain now. That's expected. Just gonna remove this, compile. I'm just gonna also import the dot slash default dot CSS. Yeah, should still be error. Just gonna inspect it. Maybe there's something that's erroring here. Server not responding index.css. Oh, the in main.css it imports index.css even though we have deleted it. So yeah, now it's fine. Nicely done. Yeah. Okay, so next part we're actually gonna so we have imported the image, right? So why it's complaining? We have imported the image. Why does it not display? So in React, if you want to import file, it's a different syntax. So I'm just gonna show you how. So this is dot slash assets icon menu dot sfg, right? If you notice, it's the same kind of file path, right? Like it's the same kind of file path. So, but React doesn't work this way. I think because I think it's like there's like we are converted. In the end, these things is converted into this index.html. Or like I guess as you can see, as I can say before, React is a virtual DOM. You want to map it later on. So like what we deploy, what we display here later, it's all just HTML, CSS, JavaScript in the end. Browser doesn't care about React. They don't know Angular, they don't know Vue, they don't know any of the frameworks. It's just going to be a build file. That's going to build it into HTML. And then if you use this later on, if it's mapped into the HTML, and then the file might be compiled, and if you compile it will be messy. The file structure will be like all over the place. That's why it doesn't understand this, right? So if you want to make sure that it understands the file path, we need to import it like this. So I guess this is icon menu.sfg, right? So this icon menu sfg. So we need to import icon menu from like this, isats icon, and then icon menu.sfg. And then we can do it using like this image src, delete it using a curly bracket here, import it like this. So this will be like kind of like JavaScript variable. So because now we have the logic, it's not just a plain string, it will be actually compiled. So if you see it here, so icon menu is something that we didn't show yesterday, but if you do iPhone 12 Pro here, so this is the icon menu here. Yeah. We don't have the JavaScript code, so that's why it doesn't work. But yeah, it's at least shown there. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and then do the rest for the other things also. So assets here, GitHub email linking. So I'm just gonna import GitHub icon from the slash assets icon strip GitHub sfg. Just gonna do same with email. Oh yeah, I'm not sure if usually the practice is like a normal capital case or camel case. I believe it's a capital case. So yeah, but if not, it's fine. Just the practice here. And then import LinkedIn icon. LinkedIn is like, yeah. And then assets icon strip email .sfg. And then yeah, and then also we need to import the profile here, the profile.jpg. Import profile image from sets profile jpg. Import project image also here. This project image from the slash assets project one image.png. Yeah, so I'm just gonna import everything here. Yeah, GitHub icon. So I'm just email icon. Yeah, so it's marked. So I'm just gonna click tab, autocomplete, and then LinkedIn icon. Yeah. So yeah, nicely done. It's completely imported here. Just gonna do the rest in here, profile image, and then project image. Let's see project image. Project image. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we are done. We have completely refactored into from kind of the HTML says JavaScript into React because basically it's React's basically just that, right? But doing things like this doesn't sound right, doesn't seem right because it's like still, as I said before, it's like React is like a component. We want to make things into, we want to isolate things. We want to make sure that things kind of like run on its own. We don't want to make things into pieces size of code, right? But what we have done now is just a big chunk of code. So it doesn't really kind of make it fun to code with, right? So what we are going to do is we want to make a component. So we can easily call that component later on. So if we do assets here, or I guess I need to make a new folder. We usually just call it components. And then, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and then make a new component. So the new component will be just header.jsx here. So yeah, usually with component, we have a capitalized kind of name. So it's header.jsx with a capital H. And I'm going to use the keyword here, export default function header like this. And then in the app.jsx, I'm just going to import all this. And then we use return here, parenthesis, and then paste it. So, and it's have icon menu, right? So we need to make sure that this is properly imported. Yeah. So now I can just remove this whole header here, delete it, and then header here. So it's quite smart. It has this, so I can just click tab. So clicking tab doesn't just make sure that it's auto-completed, but it will import it for you, right? The import header from ./components header. And yeah, so if icon menu here. Oh, I think I have not imported. No, I have imported here. Okay. It will be error because now that component is inside, this header is inside the folder of components. The way we want to import needs to be different. So if sometimes you don't really know how this works, just click dot slash, or wait, it's not smart. Is it smart? Dot slash. Oh yeah. So we just click dot slash, and then it will have this kind of auto suggestion here, assets, and then icons, and then I believe icon menu.smg. Yeah, and then yeah, now it's fine. And then in here, in the app.jsx, it's just a header now. So it's nice. We make things into kind of like app, yeah, just make things into a bite-sized piece of code. So I'm gonna just do quickly for the rest here. We want to make sure that we have enough time for the backend implementation and the guestbook. So let's just do it here. So new file. Yeah, it should be quite repetitive now. So this is the hero section. It's gonna hero section.jsx. And yeah, just cut it instantly here. Export default function hero section. Then return. Yeah. So we have the return here. And make sure that you imported the correct icon here. Just cut it here. And yeah, it's imported here. Main.jsx, app.jsx. I remove it here, this one. Profile image here. And then just hero section. Okay. It's imported. Oh yeah. There's the same error here. I think if I do I'll just go just dot dot slash. I just add single dot. I think it should correct it. Yeah, now it's fine. Yeah, hero section, and then just gonna refactor this about section also. Per section here, file about section, export default function about section, return parenthesis paste. Yeah. Let me know if you have like any questions about like maybe I use some kind of like keyboard, something that you are wondering. Maybe after the event also is okay. Yeah, so I'm just gonna import about section here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think there's maybe some error here. Oh yeah, profile image. So need to make sure we import this. And then just add dot here, one dot, because it's under nested. So it's fine now. Projects. Okay, one more. Got it. New file, projects section .jsx. So I have projects here because the way we kind of implement this, I think you can add more projects if you want, but it's only one project. Export default function. Yeah, so if you use export default function, the function name is usually the same with the file name. That's I think the convention that we usually do in the kind of React if you wanna do it. So app.jsx import. Oh yeah, we don't need to use import here. I mean, we can do it, but just gonna add and then do it automatically for me. Project section here. Oh yeah, I think this is project section, right? So I need to make sure the name is project section. So I think if I click here and then find all references, or maybe change all occurrences, just projects section, and click enter, save. In the app.jsx, oh, never mind. I thought it's automatically changed. There should be a way. Maybe rename symbol. Yeah, projects section here. And then in app.jsx, yeah, it's automatically changed. Just like a quick little stuff that can be helpful. Go ahead here. Okay. I think it's importing this project image here. Yeah, project image dot slash. And yeah, it's perfectly done. So I think we can go ahead and take a quick 2 minute, 3 minutes break here if you want to go to washroom. Yeah, the next section I'm gonna implement the guestbook front end, and then later part I will implement the convex backend. So it should be done in around an hour or so. Yeah, yeah. Feel free to go to washroom or anything. Hey.
When you imported the LinkedIn icon, it was the same as the email.
Oh, oh, okay.
How it doesn't change on the website.
Wait, let's see. About in the hero, I think. Oh, okay. And then, oh, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. So, yeah, I will just change let people know later. Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay.
Question like, what do you think between like software and understanding?
Oh yeah, sure. It's around the same kind of major. I just choose soci because the transfer credit was better. Yeah, I think if you open my website, the post I have, I think I probably have some guides on the CS transfer guide. Langara CS to CS. Oh yeah, yeah. What's your name?
My name is Ken.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice
I
to meet
already
you.
tried I got something.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, I just choose soci just because I have like I take like less courses, basically like the waste transfer. I wouldn't really depends on what you want to do, right? If you wanna, I guess most a lot of people want to be just software engineer, regular route. I just want to do that. I just choose soci. Yeah, but I find CS to be like really good for the friendships and the clubs. But I feel like it doesn't really matter in the end because like you just take classes and then you just join the club you want to join, right? But soci in my course is really nice. I have made like very good friends in my major. Soci is really closer, so I can know each other. But also depends on the year. My year we have a lot of soci people, but CS is a bigger. I think if I yours use, I might just think just go CS, because they have a concentration stream here. I think it's not offered in my time. They have concentration string, so they have more specialized, Yeah, okay. CS or so CS, okay. Okay, nice. Yeah.
That's why I don't want to come to that.
Yeah.
Because I can transfer the time to software.
Yeah, I think source is a bit harder to graduate with. That's one thing. So I think if you're good in CS, I think you're okay. The only thing that soci can be beneficial is if you want to enroll soci courses in Surrey, they get a priority enrollment. Yeah, but I think but that's just a minor thing. Yeah, I wouldn't like just change my JS because of that one. And you have a lot of courses in Burnaby anyways.
Someone, one guy, like.
I'm starting my 5th year. Yeah, 5th year. So I started Langara 2020. So I transferred 2022.
Yeah, because like, I have gone to your website when I was like in my second semester.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Oh yeah, nice. Good to know.
So you have one, the right website like Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah. No worries. Okay, all right. See you.
So that, you know, but it's fine. Yeah, I never like full on. I was mainly just had that experience. So it's good part. Lab or something. But I. So.
Okay. All right. I think we can continue. Yeah. So we have this website done. So there's a minor typo. So if you notice this, I imported the LinkedIn icon incorrectly. So I'm just gonna go ahead and change it. Thank you for pointing it out. So hero section here. Just gonna change this email to LinkedIn. And yeah, it should be imported correctly. Yeah. So we are gonna go ahead and implement the guestbook section. So you will kind of like make things from quite scratch now. So I'm gonna make a component here, new file, guestbook section dot JSX. So what's guestbook, right? So we can go ahead and see the Figma here now. So we want to implement this, right? Or if you want to see the deployed ones, I believe there's the one I already deployed. It's not for. Oh, it's down. Or maybe someone spammed the database. Interesting. Okay, so it's down now. Oh, no. This is a different deployment. Oh yeah, so for this one, if you wanna, so this is a portfolio and lifestyle, right? So if you wanna take a look at it, the index will not be shown, of course, but you can just go to like any of the folder here, like and it will show it. So if you wanna see it, or like the live, I believe live is a bit different, but yeah. So if you wanna actually see it, the deployed one is like in the folder. Yeah. So it's gonna see the deployed one in the projects latest one. Intro to React. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Oh, no one spams it. Nice. Yeah, we want to like make it look like this. I believe it looks hopefully similar. I just add the submit button here just because I think it's a bit better if we have a submit button. And yeah, we have the circle here, the name, and then dates. So yeah, everything looks good. It's September 18th. I think, yeah, I made this thing like at 12 a.m. yesterday, so we cannot validate if the date is always correct. But yeah, hopefully tomorrow if I add some things, I believe the date should be fine. Should be like different, I guess, not hard coded. Yeah, so we're gonna look like this. So we can go ahead and then make the guestbook section. Just export default guestbook section, and then return. So now I'm just gonna make things like, I guess, make sure that it's connected. Hello world. Hello world. Hello world. And something expecting. Okay. Export default function. Yeah. Yeah. And then just in app.jsx. Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this count here. We don't use it. Yeah. And then here, guestbook section. And in the deployment, hello world. Okay, nice. So we have make things connected now. So I'm just gonna implement the stuff here. So we are gonna use the same kind of ideology from yesterday. So if you join, you might find this quite easier to progress, but I'm just gonna repeat things again. So we have the section here. I'm just gonna make sure that it's indented well. Yeah. So with the section here, class name, content, container, ID hero, and the paragraph here, everything with a lot of class names so that we can easily be selected to the CSS. Yeah. So we wanna think, I'm just gonna do like a similar part the way I do it yesterday. So we wanna make sure that it's connected. We wanna think like how do we implement this, right? So we want to make sure that this is the left one and then the right one in the desktop, I guess. And then the guest book is like left a comment, just say hello. So we have like the top part, it's like we have like two sections at the parent, the guest book and left comment. And then the second section is this form and then this form and reviews. So form and reviews under one container, I believe. The guest book and the left comment is just another one container. So it's two container here. And then in the second container, we have like another container of this form and then the review. And then the review will just be the reviews component will just contain a bunch of review. So yeah, that's how we're gonna plan it. So can go ahead and code it. Yeah, so can make section now. Section. We have the class name of same as the others, content, container, and then ID of guestbook so that we can easily reference the ID here. And then yeah, can use H2 here of guestbook. Guestbook. I don't know if it's uses space or no. Oh, it doesn't use space. Oh yeah. Okay. Guestbook, and then P leave a comment or just say hello. Nice. And then it's a div here, guest book. So, so if for those who didn't join yesterday, we use this content container, like strip here. So the content is means that this is a container that's inside a content, right? So if we see it in the main.js, the app.jsx, we have the main here. So main acts as the content, right? Or like I guess the container here, and then we have the ID guestbook just to make sure it's have the same kind of unique identifier, and also the same with other hero section. It has the content container. Oh, never mind what I said. Content container is just a name, like a connected name. That's why it doesn't really make sense. So content container is just a class name of content container. It's like a kind of like two word combined. So that if we select it in the CSS later on, if you go to the app.css content container, it's selected right with the other CSS. So yeah, guestbook section h2 div class name of guestbook content. Now this makes sense. So we have the ID of guestbook. That's why if you want to make something a class inside it, use a guestbook here because the content is inside the guestbook now. That's why you use two strips now. Yeah, and so as I said before, we have added this thing. Now we want to make the form and the reviews, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and then make form here. So we use a form. It's a special HTML element in order to allow us to kind of later on, if you want to submit things, we have a button submit. It will have that kind of smart logic of submitting things. So class name, the same thing, guestbook, content, form. So this is a form that's inside the content, that's inside the guestbook. And then that's the form. We'll just make it empty for now. And then we'll make a div. So we can do just dot, enter, just automatically becomes like this. And then guestbook, content, reviews. So we have plural here because it's contain a bunch of review. Yeah, and this is the starting point. So I'm gonna go ahead and then implement all the HTML, and then later on I'm gonna go to the CSS part. So yeah. So if you see it here, name, enter your name message, enter your message. I'm gonna make sure, yeah, just gonna be quite straightforward here. Name seems quite bolded, so I'm just gonna go ahead and then add a bold element here. So this is a P is paragraph and B is a bold. Make sure that the text is bold. Name, and just gonna put input type text placeholder. So we have placeholder here. So because we have enter your name, that's the placeholder. So just gonna put enter your name, and we see it now. Okay, yeah, looks quite ugly. That's fine. We're just gonna do it in the CSS later on. And P message here, and then input. So yeah, so this is kind of like this kind of huge, right? And then we can also like change this kind of the size here, but by default it's like this. So if it's like a huge text area, we don't use input usually. We use something called text area. And then the text area, can remove the name here. Just use, yeah, we just can use the placeholder here. Placeholder, enter your message. And yeah, so since the text area doesn't really have anything inside, so yeah, this is like opening and closing, right? But if it doesn't have any content inside, we can just remove this and use a slash. So that's the same thing, I believe. Yeah, should be fine. And then we have the button here. So for button, the button is also inside the form. It has to be inside the form, or if not, it will not like be correct. So it's button dot btn. So it's button that has the class name of btn. Yeah. So, and then we have the submit here. Nicely done. And so we are also gonna make the review part. So for now, we're just gonna implement like one review. div class name, guestbook content review, and then here in the Figma, let's see, right? So this just do a simple component. We should have the kind of container for each one, and then just have a p tag, p tag, p tag, just name. So let's implement it. But this one, since it has the circle, it's like containing like 2 elements, right? So we can go ahead and use a div for the first one. So the first one, use a div, class name, guestbook, content, review, name. It's kind of nested, but that's fine. And then, so we just can use a div here for a circle. So it's just a empty div. We're gonna decorate in CSS here to make sure that it's a circle. Yeah, notice how I just make it self-closing because not gonna add anything inside. I'm just gonna be bold here of John Doe. And yeah, and I use P here. So this one is the message. So P class name, guestbook, content, review, message. I think if you see my source code, it's a command. It's a guestbook content review command. But I just say it's message just because I think it makes sense now with the name and message pairing. So it should be message here. So this is message. Yeah, it's gonna put anything here. And the date. So date, I'm just gonna hard code it for now because we will do it later on in the backend anyways to actually get the date. There's I think a typo here. And class name, guestbook, content, review date. Yeah, and okay, nicely done. So we already implemented, I guess, the HTML stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and style it in CSS. So let's see. So you've seen here, I think, we have the comment here about start, projects end. So I'm just gonna copy this comment, guestbook start, guestbook start, and then guestbook end. Yeah. Yeah, let's see. And guestbook start, guestbook end. So yeah, will be some time of coding. So yeah, we're gonna do it quite fast here. Not as fast, but make sure that we have time for the black end stuff. Stack selection column here. So guestbook here. So it's just the whole container. So if for those who don't join yesterday, the way we implement the CSS here is we design mobile first because the industry now more people use mobile. We cater to mobile first customers, and then the second class citizen, I guess, is the desktop. That's why we have this media only screen. This means this only applies CSS for those who use a device that's like of size tablet or higher. So this is 768. You can see it in the I think in the variable here. So tablet 768. It's also like kind of like standard in the usage of Google. The mean width for the table is usually this number, and the mean width for desktop is usually this number. Yeah, so it's all just like mobile, but if you want to decorate it for desktop, we'd use this media only screen. Flex direction column, gap. So we have a gap. So gap is like, yeah, let's see how it looks now. Okay, yeah, so it's kind of like very cramped, right? So we're gonna make a gap here. So gap's like the distance between each child, 1.5 rem. Okay, so now it's has more gap, and then the width is just 100%. So this ensures that, yeah, it starts from the left here. Just kind of make sure that it has the proper kind of styling. And yeah, then we can go ahead. So let's see now what's left. We did the parent here, container, the guestbook. Now we're just gonna do guestbook content. Guestbook content here. Display. So content is this kind of this whole thing, right? So if you see it like in this stuff, it's just this whole thing. So yeah, guestbook content here. Display flags also, it's kind of like very similar with this. We're just gonna copy paste. but maybe the gap is one rem here. It's like smaller. So let's see. Oh yeah, I think it's an ID here, but if you see it here, I think that's a class. That's why we don't see it being applied. So the hashtag is for ID, dot is for class name. So now if you see it now, it should be okay. Let's see. Font size. I usually do this if I don't see. Oh yeah, okay, it's applied. Guestbook, content, form. So we now want to implement the form here. So for form, we're just gonna have use this stuff again, display flex direction column. Just a kind of like no-brainer. Usually I just use a lot of this. Makes things very easy to, I guess, decorate. Now we have this. Okay. And flex direction, we have the background color of the form. Var color neutral 0. Yeah, we have the color here. So if you see the Figma file, yeah, it's like a kind of grayish color. I use the var here to reference the variable that's defined on top. And yeah, and so we see that the here is like has some distance, right, between this and this. So that's called a padding. Like distance between this one. So I'm just gonna write the padding. Let's try like 2 rem. And then see it. Okay, now it has a nice padding. So what next? I want to make sure that it doesn't have a sharp edge. So we want to use border radius. So make sure that it has like kind of the border here to rim. So now, yeah, we have a nice border radius of 2 rem. And then also it takes, yeah, and then height is 100%. Just to make sure that, well, we can just ignore it for now and then see what happens, just to make sure that every CSS line of code we make is like justifiable at this point of time. We might add more CSS line of code later as the things progress. Guestbook. So now we want to make sure we want to implement for the input, content form input, but also the text area, right? Because we see here, it's like very sharp, right? Doesn't look like the one to implement in the Figma file. It's like very soft, smooth, and yeah, just overall like just a more modern feel. So go ahead here, text area. So we have a border here. So usually in modern design, we don't like this kind of sharp border, so just border 0. Okay, we remove the border now. And border radius now. It's kind of the same with this one. We want to make it a bit like smooth on the edge. Yeah, it's nice. Okay. Oh, wait. Refresh. Yeah. And then padding here. Let's make sure it has some, yeah, spacing. Okay. Looks nice, right? Quite nice. So we have the input. Feels like the input and text area, the height we need to kind of adjust. So you can adjust it individually here. So height. So usually the idea of we want to make things like very responsive. Usually it's fine if you want to specify the kind of y-axis, like the height. Like we can go like very big because like in mobile and desktop it's all just scrolling down, right? But you need to be careful if you want to implement like a big width, right? Because mobile in desktop, maybe it looks good in desktop, but might not look as good in mobile. So you want to make sure be critical when you specify like the size of your width. But now it's just doing height, so height is fine. Here input, and this is text area, height of 8 rem, and then flex is 1. No, I'll see what happens now first. Okay, it looks good. Have like, I guess, more kind of name and message. Select text the whole line, right? We don't want that. So let's see what we can do. So let's see. I think if we do like flex 1 here. Okay, it doesn't do anything. I think it's fine now for now. I think the text area is fine, just the submit button, right? The one that's like, okay, why is this like the whole thing, right? So let's see if we have the button implemented. Oh yeah, so for button here, you can just use button.btn here. I think this is very generic button.btn. So you can go ahead and then move it into the global file here, the global start, just to make sure things are correctly placed. So the width of the button.btm should be, so if you don't know what to add, just, so yeah, auto fit content, max content, min content. I think fit content makes sense. You should fit to the content. So if we do it here now, yeah, perfectly nice. The submit is just text, the width is just the content itself. And yeah, it's done. Text area. And now we want to implement for the reviews. Okay, so let's see. So reviews here. So just gonna do the same cookie cutter again, the flex stuff, content form, but now it's content reviews. Display flex direction column. So like, because form and reviews kind of like the same hierarchy, we can just use this one rim. Yeah, and then might not look as obvious, I think, because this is just the parent, right? So, and then we can use this, the same thing with the review part. So we have reviews and we have reviews here in the app dot guestbook session, right? We have reviews and we have review. Ideally, it should be like reviews review, but seems too long. So I guess now it's fine. Just like just things to know right here. And yeah, let's see. Yeah, go back to the app.css review, and yeah, gap is 0.5 rim here, smaller gap. See what happens. Okay, nice. And then we want to make sure that it has the kind of border here, the container, we have the border here. So let's see if we can implement that. Border, it's like 0.5 pixel, solid square. It's just color neutral too, just picking color that suits best. Okay, so if you see it here, yeah, we have a border here. Nice. It's rough, so we add border radius here and rim. Yeah, let's see, there's an error. Okay, it's colon here. Yeah, nice. But it's like very rough, right? So we want to add padding. It's not rough, like it's like very close to the content. So rim, and yeah, looks good. And next step, we're gonna implement the styling of the name. So I'm just gonna copy paste this name. So the same stuff, display flex direction. Now name is the containing the circle and the name itself. So flex direction should be row. And but I guess we haven't implemented the circle, so it doesn't make such sense, right? So we can just implement the circle first here. So circle here. So we want to make this blue circle, right? So how do we implement that? So it was a div, but we don't care. It can be any HTML element. So we can just make sure that the width and height is one rem. Just the height. Yeah, doesn't look like it because it's maybe just a container, right? Doesn't have any color, so we need to specify the background color here. So just far color primary 6, for example. I think in the code it's like a hard coded, but I realize it's not a good practice. So I just want to make sure it has the same name. But I guess for BTN, right? BTN has the same background color. So it's color primary 5. So we can go ahead and use color primary 5. Okay, it's the same. Nice. And yeah, so if you want to make it things complete circle, you can use border radius 50%. I believe 50% with make things completely circle. I believe doesn't have any difference. Like 100, once it goes past 50%, doesn't really have any difference. So 50 is good enough. And then the display is inline block. Let's see if it does anything. Okay, it doesn't do anything, right? So we use display here because we want to see, right? It's like the kind of x-axis doesn't align together, right? We want to jump and circle to be like kind of the same level, the same height. So that's why we use flex here. Flex of the review name. That's why we use flex. So with flex, we can easily use align items center. Now it'll be align center, right? So it's nice. And then yeah, it's very close to each other. We want to make sure we add gap, gap 0.5 frame. Nice. It has a good gap now. And I think it looks overall nice. But we designed for mobile here. So we inspect here for mobile. It looks just as fine. But the problem is in desktop, we want to make sure it's like left and right. So that's the final step. So we can just copy these things that only applies to desktop, media only screen and max width. Yeah, I'm just gonna type it again. So it makes sense on my head in width 768 pixel. And yeah, so just only one thing. So the guestbook content, content here for mobile, it's going down from top to bottom. That's why the flex direction is column. But for desktop, we want it to go to left from left to right. So that's why we choose this and just override it, flex direction to 0. That's why it will go left to right. Nice. Okay, but now it looks like doesn't take the whole space. Kind of interesting, right? We want to make sure that we have the content has 2 children. We want to make sure that it has the equal kind of space, kind of. So what do? We have the property called flex1. So if you're curious, I think the CSS just basically playing around with flex. So that's a flex trick here. I think I want to show it yesterday, but there was no connection. So we can use like search flex1 here. I think. But yeah, I think a lot of things in here is really useful. You want to learn a lot about flex. Flex is like most things I do in CSS, just doing flex knowledge, because like there's a lot of ways to solve problems. And I think the way I solve problems, and I think the way a lot of people I do is just using flex to solve, like, I guess, positioning problem. It's just, I think, more intuitive for a lot of people. So there's a property called flex here. So flex makes sure that we take the whole space. The children can take the whole space, and we can put it in the children. So the children is the form and then the review. So flex should be 1 here, or maybe we can put it like in this. Oh yeah, wait, not the input to text area. We put it in the form and then the reviews. So we can go ahead and put flex 1 here. And then we can go ahead for the form, for the reviews to also flex 1. And then now if you see it here, it takes the whole space now with it by applying each to have flex 1, flex 1. So flex 1, if 2 children has flex 1, basically they want to take the whole space, and then the ratio is 1 to 1, right? So if you want the process 1 to 2, just add it 1 to 2. So it'll be like 1x and then 2x. So yeah, it's really nice to use flex, just being able to like do a lot of styling. Yeah. So now it's done, and we want to add the backend. So let's see what we can do to add the backend, right? And I guess before adding the backend, maybe some questions like, why don't we just do it statically? I just think that it's more, a lot of things will be very replicable. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just implement the backend directly, since we don't have much time anyways. So how do we implement the backend, right? So we wanna use convex. So for convex, it's kind of like a database. You don't really need to do much coding. We can just focus on the front end. So if we use the database here, and so here, convex here. So I just learned this also yesterday. I came it literally, I don't really know anything, just trying things out, and it works quite nice. So convex is really good if you use TypeScript, because it's like fully typed, and then it's also really good with React. So it's just like really good to use it. So just go ahead and get started here with the get started page. Fine. Let's see, get started here. Oh, okay, nice. I think I wanna just make sure that React quick start. Yeah, so we should use convex React get started, just React quick start. So this is what I did. So I think because we already have our repo, we don't want to do this. We just want to npm install convex here. So just let's do this. Npm install convex. So since our terminal is already running the whole npm run dev in here, I'm just gonna ahead and just click split terminal here and just make another terminal so that we can do this command without making sure we don't destroy the local deployment. Npm install convex here. Yeah, it's really fast. So yeah, I'm just following this step by step. I don't really know anything other than the docs. I'm just following it kind of blindly, but it's really nice. So we have npx convex dev. So what does he do? I believe this is convex, server convex deployment. So npx convex dev here. Create a new project or create an existing project. So I'm just gonna create a new project. Project name's the same. So what does it do? It's very smart. We automatically make the env.local. So for those who don't know, env.local, env is like environment variable. It's like a kind of a password. So I will not show any of this to the other people. So we use env.local because it's a kind of a password, right? So if you clone my GitHub later on, you will not get this file. So how this file will not get tracked? We have a file called git ignore. So git ignore with like ignore anything that's specified in here, right? So we can call .env here, or I think by default anything .local maybe. Yeah. So any file name with the kind of suffix of .local will just be ignored by git. So if we push it to GitHub later on, the env.local will just be completely ignored, which is what we want to do. We don't want to share our password to everyone, and it's a good practice. I think if you are like want to search for jobs and people see, oh, you leak your OpenAI key, okay, that's not a good practice. So you wanna start good practice earlier. So yeah, we have to set up the deployment here. So we can just go ahead and see sample data for your database. So what makes convex really good is that you can like make a JSON, local JSON file, yet automatically converts it into a database. So they just do it for you. And this is the kind of thing that you kind of want to do in hackathon if you just want to focus on building things. And then it's also really good if you just want to make a small app. You don't really need to make a full server deployment, handle the middleware, other stuff. Front end is like what matters for the earlier stage. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put this data.jsonl, I guess, or maybe just make the same name. If we are scared, just make sure sample data.jsonl. It has the L on its last one. So yeah, we want to do this, but we want to make sure that we have the kind of data that we want. So the kind of data that we want is just this name and message, simple as that. So for database, sometimes you need to make your own schema. If you have taken like CPSA 2221 in Langara's database, you learn how to make a schema, but we don't need to care about it. So we just make the data and then they will infer the schema based on that. So we just make a name here, just JSON file, I think. Yeah, so let's see how it looks like. Yeah, so it should be like a double string, I guess. Name, John Doe, and then message. This is awesome. And then wait, okay. Just gonna copy paste here again. This is cool. And then Jim Doe, this is interesting. And yeah, so what's the next step here? So npx convex import table task. So this data will be added to your database. But this sample data.jsonl is like placed on the root file. So if you want to do it with convex, so I'm just going to add and split another terminal here because the first one is running our client, second one is running our convex. So we need another one. So just going to paste this, but we need to make sure that the file name is not sample data.jsonl, but it's the same file, but it's under the public folder. So just public sample data.jsonl. Okay, so it automatically creates the database for you. Quite nice. We have the optional here, define the schema. I told you before that it's fine. We don't need a schema for now. So we expose the database query. So yeah, we have this add a new file task.ts. This is basically allow us to fetch the data later on. So the read operation, copy here. So it's TypeScript, right? And we have the convex folder here. If you use the npm install convex and or maybe the other command, it will automate the yeah, it will make the folder instantly for you. So we're just gonna go ahead and task.ts, the same one that they want us to use it. So this is under the convex task.ts. So yeah, I'm just gonna copy paste this. And then in the main.tsx, we want to make sure that it has this convex provider. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. Src main.tsx. Yeah. So they assume that this is a TypeScript file. So this will not work in JavaScript. I'll just remove this. And then convex here, convex provider. Let's see. Yeah, so we have this. So I think we need to wrap it in the outside the app so that they can perform API call later on. Let's see, convex provider. And yeah, should be good. And then if you want to display the data, so I'm just gonna copy paste this also. So because the one that using the data is just the guestbook, just use it in the guestbook here. So okay, so the import is outside. Import guestbook, use query, API. So it's already quite smart. It already has like everything that we need. And just copy this task. And then I'll just go ahead and alert JSON that stringify task to make sure that we successfully called it. So where's the deployment? I believe this is the website one. Let's see our sample deployment. Okay. Okay, things are erroring. So yeah, I believe this is because we have. Okay, yeah. So we just need to make sure it's imported correctly. So I think just add another dot slash. This is also dot slash, I believe. Dot slash convex react. Yeah. Okay. I think does the file exist? Let's see. Oh, dot slash convex. Yeah, here. Okay, it does not show it. I believe maybe I missed some step. Oh, convex react. It doesn't. Yeah, it's just the library. This is the convex npm library, so it's not in our locally. Okay, so if you go ahead. Okay, now we have the data. You might not be shown possible, but yeah, we have the message and name now from the database. Really cool. So now I'm just gonna assume that this task has the data. So now we're gonna use the map operation here. So from this one, I'm just gonna use a JavaScript here. So task, just gonna make sure it has the correct one. Map. So task is consisting of like, this is still the array of data, right? So we want to map it. So iterate through each data. So task map. But first, before that, we want to make sure that we only display this if the data is correct. So task.map can be dangerous if task is undefined. So we need to make sure that it's only if task is undefined, we do this. So task will just be equal to true if it's defined. Task.map task into return. And yeah, so from this, we can just move these things out into the HTML. And then this will be task.name. And then this is just task.message. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm just really happy this was first time. We have the data automatically mapped into the convex from the database. And yeah, it all has the data. So we have completely done the read operation. Now we want to make sure that the write operation, I guess the posting request will work. So let's see. Oh yeah, and the date is still hard coded. So we can go ahead and see they have. So if you see here, right, it only have name and message. How is it possible that we can get the date if we don't have the date, right? But usually in most database, they have the record time already automatically handled. So in convex, they have a private variable called task./creation time. So if we do it here, yeah, but this is in a, so this is like a long variable. So it's very precise, right? But we want to display it in a way that makes sense. So if you want to display it in a way that makes sense, we can make a function here. So make a local function here, format date that takes a timestamp. So if you're curious, for this function, I just ChatGPT it. Please convert this into this. And ChatGPT is just really smart. Timestamp. Return it to new date of timestamp. Just two local date string. And answer US is like US standard time. And so yeah, year should be numeric. Should be string here. Year should be numeric. Month should be short, like separate, like a shorthand, like just 3 letters usually. And then days, just the number itself. Yeah, so in short, this is like a new date. We make a new date. And then we have from the new date function, we have a function here, and then just pass on the thing. So in this format date, we can just pass and make sure that it's called here. Let's see, format date. And then task./creation time. Nice. Okay, it works. We have the time now, September 18, 2024. Very nice. So there's like so now we see that, right? But there's like something that doesn't really sit right with me, that the fact that this thing is go all the way up into the bottom. So we want to make sure the height is always the 100% of its component. You don't want to, like, I guess, follow others. So that's why I think in the app.css, we have the height 100%. So here, I don't want to code it at first because it doesn't make sense at that point, right? So we want to, I guess, code like in an agile iteratively. We code, so if we have the height 6% here in the form, it will just be according to its component, right? Yeah, and then write operation for now will still not work, right? It's not connected yet. So we're gonna head and implement the write operation. Let's see. So we can go ahead and then make sure that we can handle the data anyways, right? So before implementing the backend, we want to make sure the client works as, like, how do we even pass the data from the client into the server, right? Before implementing the server, like before implementing the convex. So we can just use the React use state. So we have two variables, like the name and message. So we have the name and message. So const name, we use the React use state here. Set name is just use state of an empty string. So this is just a name with the set name of use state of empty string. So, and then const message, set message, and use state of an empty string also. And yeah, and then we have this form, right? So the form will just be from the here. So we want to make sure that the form implements a function. And then when we click the button, it implements function, and then the function will just call that API of the convex itself. So just gonna make sure we have implement the handler here, submit handler here, async. So for operation that like connects with external systems or other stuff, or like things that takes too long, or like not too long, but things that like we don't know when to take it, you use async operation. So if you use dealing with database, other store stuff, we just use an async function. So there's also event prevent default here. It's usually used a lot, just to make sure that like HTML form, they have like some kind of like interesting behavior by default that we don't want to add. So just prevent default here. And then yeah, and then we will do API convex API operation here. And then after we submit it, right, we want to set the name into empty again. Set message into empty. Yeah, so does this work at this point? Let's see. Oh, it's erroring. Inspect console. Use state is not defined. Oh, interesting. Doesn't even allow me to import. But yeah, I will just import use state here. React. And then yeah, should be good now. So yeah, but the name here is not even binded to the form. So we are gonna go ahead and bind it to this one. So value is name, and then it's also value is message. Yeah, and now if you notice, we have bind it, but it will not change, right? Because we haven't set a proper kind of like way of like when to, as you mentioned here, right? If you use state, the only way to change this variable is use through the set name and set message function. But we have not used set name or set message anywhere in here. That's why the variable will always stay as an empty string. So if we want to make sure that database is not an empty string, we can make a kind of on change function here. On change event and then set message event.target.value. So it's like event have the target is just basically the input and then the value itself, and then do the same here. I believe doesn't have like any kind of difference. And yeah, so if we do it now here, it will be able to be changed. Oh, I think I missed something. Value is message. Oh, this is set message. This should be set name. Okay, and yeah, should be nice, looking nice. And we can also update it. And then if we submit it, should be empty now. Okay, nice. I believe it shouldn't handle, it should, yeah. I believe it should not, I guess, start it to our top, but it's fine for now. We just want to make sure that the right operation works first. And yeah, so now we have completed the client. We know how to pass the data from client to server. We just like this API operation of to write it, right? So for this one, I don't find where to, I guess, perform the API operation of the convex itself. So I'm just gonna, I just chat GPT it yesterday on like, there's probably like the documentation, but I just, wait, no, I think there's the documentation, but it's not part of this get started. So I think if we use convex, use mutation. Yeah, so we have the query here. So query is basically a read operation. It fetch the data. We have write operation, which is basically mutation can be used for create or update. So this is the function that we're gonna use. So convex my function.ts. So I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this. Never mind what I said. I think this one I didn't chat it. I just, oh yeah, browse in the documentation. This is how you wanna create the data. So it's convex my function.ts. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use it. Convex new file my functions.ts. Just copy paste it also. So it will be very similar with test. And then test just collect, right? But the my function, we want to make sure that it handles the data that we want. So our data is just two, right? Remember what we mentioned, just name and message. So we can go ahead and then use that. Name is v.string. Message is also v.string. And then, so this is the args. And then ctx.db.insert. So like just insert it to the database, into the task. So the database task by default, you want to change, you can change the name here. So it's task here, the database task. This also task. So you can go ahead if you want to change it, but yeah, just the purpose of demoing, just want to make sure it works end to end. Name is args.name, and then message is args.message. Yeah. Yeah, nicely done. I think should be working. So we have the create task here. So if we look in the, yeah, so we have this function, right? So we just want to make sure we can call this create task from the guestbook component. So if we search in the component guestbook section, src component guestbook section, Yeah, so we have this. So yeah, how do we actually call this, right? So we have the mutation arguments. Let's see if it has something there here. So because it has like the create task here, I think it's use mutation. So yeah, so if you want to call it from client, you can use this. Use mutation api.myfunctions. It's like the same function, right? And then mutate something. So this mutate something is just the task that we have. So the function that we have. So like in here, it's the create task. That's the function. So we can go ahead and then use. So yeah, use queries, just read operation, just fetching data. And if you want to make a read or create or update, so yes, we're just gonna follow this. Constate mutate something. Maybe not mutate something. It's very ambiguous. Just add entry. That looks better. And then yeah, so we have API here. So yeah, API here is the same for use mutation of query. Use my function is this file name. And then the function is create test. Oh yeah, it's quite smart. It has the create test here. So yeah, so if we go from even from API here, we know it's task or my functions. So this I think it's the beauty of convex. I believe in like yeah, a lot of others may not be as smart, but I believe most would be like quite smart. But yeah, convex is just really nice. But for sure, if you use like something like MongoDB, Express, React, like Node.js, they will not be as smart with this. You need to have, I guess, more. You need to define the schema. You need to define everything. It just takes time. So I just my function here, create tests, and then yeah, and then so we can see. So we have the function here. So this is a function, right? Use mutation. So we can see what does it take. So this arg stands for argument. So it takes an argument of name and message. And then this featuring is just the schema for them. It's expecting something of string, right? So we can just add entry, name, add entry, name slash message. Okay, so let's see. But as I mentioned before, so everything that has an async operation, it should has an await, means that this line of code, we are not sure how long it will take to complete. So we want to make sure we use await so that, yeah, it will just be properly handled. So this is dealing with external systems. So we want to use await keyword for here. And yeah, let's see if it works. Yeah, there's an error here. So let's inspect console. Use mutation is not defined. Okay, so I believe if it should be in the same folder. Okay, yeah. Spec. Okay, now it's good. Okay, let's see. Jimmy Doe. Hello. Submit. Okay, it's not fetching it. Let's see if I did something wrong. Oh, yeah. By the way, I know the workshop time ends at 6:20. So if you have something, feel free to just leave. But I'm expecting this to be finished in under 10 minutes. But yeah, feel free if you want to leave. Don't want to hold you guys go home. Yeah. So let's see to the console here. Each child in the should have a unique key prop. Let's see. Yeah, this is a minor thing. We can just use a thank you, no worries. Task. Yep, no worries. Key dot. Oh, I'm very dumb. This function is not even linked, right? So we want to make sure this function is linked to the submit handler itself. So on submit, just call the submit handler. And yeah, I think it should be done. Oh wait, it's even submit here. Okay, nice. Yeah, it's done. Yeah, I believe this is the localhost, and yeah, so we have completely added this. So yeah, it's quite nice. So for hackathon, if you just want to deploy it locally, or if you want to show it locally, this would be fine. But if you want to add something, if you want to deploy it, I'm just gonna show it right now how to deploy it. Let's see. So I think I'm just gonna, yeah, deploy convex React. So convex React, if you want to deploy it, right? Hosting and deployment, yeah. So we can use Vercel. So Vercel is one of the way to deploy it. So I'm just gonna use Vercel here. So it should be really quick. Create a Vercel account. So you can create a Vercel account later on. So we can just use this Vercel account. And so yeah, it's like you don't use any CLI, a command line interface here, but I'm just gonna use github.com. I need to make a new repo though, because the way Vercel works, we just integrate with our repo. So I'm just gonna make a new repo here, Langara Hacks 24, intro React live. Yeah, so I'm just gonna copy this and then git status. So it's not a git repository, right? I'm just gonna make a new terminal here. Git status. It's not a git repository, so it's gonna copy this all. Now it becomes stuff, and then add it all, commit init git push. Okay, so if we refresh it now, it should have everything that we need. And now we have this stuff. So in Vercel, let's see, yeah, vercel.com/new. We just want to import the repository here, React Live, import it. And then what's a thing there? Yeah. So we have this build command. We need to override it. Copy paste this. Root directory, build and things. Override it. Deploy. Okay, yeah. It's as easy as that. Vercel is like, I think, one of the best developer tools. It's also, I think, if you make a React framework called Next.js, they are basically the one that makes it. So yeah, Vercel is just really nice. But if you wanna like make a team plan or organization plan, I know Vercel is like quite expensive because they are like, yeah, they just have a lot of things. Oh, command npx deploy cmd run build is not defined. Let's see if it has. npx convex deploy cmd exceeded with 1. Okay. Deploy. Let's see. React quick start. npm rundev. Maybe we want to make sure that okay, it's done. And redeploy. Okay, let's see the settings again. Settings here. npx convex deploy. Oh, the framework. Oh yeah, I haven't set the frame. Wait, should be the same. Should be fit, I believe. Oh yeah, we need to add the convex deploy key. Okay, so yeah, just this one thing. If you wanna stay, so in the convex dashboard, so the way we deploy now, right? Because convex strictly doesn't, the first cell doesn't really know how how to connect the database. Because I explained before, we have the .env.local that has the API key. First cell doesn't know any of it, right? So we want to make sure that they have the kind of the key. So we can go to the convex dashboard, and oh, this is the new one, nice. And go to settings, and then go to project settings, and then deploy key here. Preview deployment. Wait, see. Think. So if we use it here, we generate production deploy key. Okay, let's see. Or maybe it's paid. That fact that, yeah, I might just delete this one. See if it allows me. Maybe it's only like one project per person. Delete the project. Okay, nice. Deployment settings again, project settings again. generate. I think this would be a, oh, it might be a, I think it's a preview deployment. We want to make sure it's production deployment. Okay, settings again, and then project settings, deploy key, generate production deploy key, and then like deploy key here, can be any key. And yeah, save this. And then in this one, we have the environment variable. Let's see, env, environment variable, okay. And then production, just production here. Deploy key, save. Okay, and then yeah, it should work. We go this again, just I think restart it again. I think if we want to restart it, we can go ahead and use trigger it from the repo itself, also possible. Repository, Langara Hacks 24, intro to React Live. We have this failure, right? Details, quick details, redeploy. Okay, let's see. We don't want to use the build cast. Okay. See, I believe might be okay. Okay, I think it's longer than what it used to be. Yeah, I'm feeling hopeful. No, never mind. But yeah, I think let's see if the settings here is, maybe it's a different setting here. Like Hacks settings, deployment. But yeah, I think it's just missing this kind of vercel. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time if this doesn't work, but I believe this, I'm just missing a few steps that I think if you have in hackathon, if you talk with the mentors anyway, you should have the time to, I guess, debug this error. Oh, maybe it doesn't have the deploy key. No, it has one. Yeah. Oh yeah, it has the same one. So. Let's see if I made something error, but yeah, just click the deploy npx convex deploy. And yeah, I think it might just be missing something that's error. Maybe I need to have a proper deploy key. Let's see. I'll just try one more time. If not, we can just wrap things up. See settings here. Maybe it's, yeah, settings here, and then it's real fit, and then deploy key of the environment variable here, convex deploy key, and then I believe I can get it from here. Save. Okay, we have the convex deploy key, and then just redeploy here. Let's see. Yeah, just go open from my GitHub again, and then have the commit here. Error details, redeploy. Okay, let's see if it works now. Oh, nice. Okay, I'm happy it's finished now. Yeah, it's finished. And then yeah, it's properly deployed. So if you even show it here in the deployment, it should work. Okay, I guess my assumption was that the deploy key name is not, can be anything, but it needs to be that name. But yeah, I'm happy this finished in, I guess, just 2 hours. Okay, yeah. Thank you for watching, everyone.